All right, we are live. It's Friday. I'm here to bust some ghosts. Welcome to the chat. Hope you're all doing well this Friday. It'll take a while for the room to fill up. Let me share. I am live. Let's talk. See if that thumbnail's showing up. What up, everyone? Say hello when you get into the room. Say hello. As you know, with the live streams, it takes us a little bit to get going. Oh, it didn't give me the... Oh, okay. Cool. That's all right. How's everyone doing? Khalid Mohammed. Hey, Sean Sullivan. How's it going, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're all doing good this Friday. Hit the like button when you get into the room. We're having interesting conversations here. Whether you agree with me or not, hit the like button. It helps promote intellectual discourse. Again, whether you agree with me or not, let's do it together. I will kind of present a opening statement here that not everyone's going to get if they come into the room later, but they'll get if they rewatch this. Just about a recent incident that happened. Sorry, I'm just sharing some stuff. Oh, I need to. This is an incident that happened with the RCMP and a First Nations Chief Alan Adam, in Fort McMurray in Canada. I'm just using this as an example. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to send this to a few more groups. Then we'll get started. Okay, I got to put this in the... Oh, okay. Interesting. Why isn't that working? Oh, there we go. Howdy, Hypnotoad. Hope all is well with you too, brother or sister. Whatever you prefer. Okay, let's go like this. Stop resisting. Police orders. That's the title of the stream today. Stop resisting police orders. Let's talk about that. I will give you guys my thoughts. So if you guys haven't come over to my personal Facebook page, you can come over and follow it if you wish. You'll just find me by searching Travis Pangburn, and you can follow me, or just send me a friend request and I'll accept you. I've opened it up to fans of Pangburn. So yeah, come over there. There's a lot of interesting discussions happening. And also follow the Pangburn official Pangburn page at Pangburn Inspire. So 3 hours ago, I posted... well, I saw this dash cam footage of Chief Alan Adam, and this happened in Fort McMurray, Canada. And the RCMP, there was some resistance to arrest, and then one of the arresting RCMP officers threw a punch to help subdue the resisting member of the public. So I'll read what I said. Okay, so this was my assessment of this video, and I'll give you guys the video link in the chat. You guys can go watch it. He's Quagmire, Quagmire. You're never gonna know what he's gonna do next. Yeah, exactly, Hypnotoad. Johnny 5 in the house. Welcome. Make sure you hit the like button. It just takes a second. Hypnotoad says, I'm conflicted about the issue of protests. I support the idea of peaceful protests, but not the rioting and whatnot. Police orders in peaceful protests only serve to agitate crowds. You get me? Yeah, I think people need to just not be like, when they see the presence of a police officer, we need to fix this cultural issue that exists in many cultures around the world, that they feel like they need to defend themselves against the police, and that the police are there to, break the law against them or to harm them or something like that. Oh yeah, even if you guys send me a message on Facebook, I will add you guys. Sean Sullivan, I'll add you right now. There we go. You will find some very interesting conversations that have been happening on my personal Facebook page. So Hypnotoad, here, I'll read what I had to say about this incident. I gave you guys the YouTube link there. So this is what I have to say. I say, stop resisting police orders. This needs to be adopted by all cultures. The time to make your case is in court, not like this, as demonstrated in the video. And you'll see that this, okay, and I go on to explain. Alan, the guy who gets arrested, was instigating a fight here. This kind of machismo gets men killed by police for the stupidest fucking reasons. How many times, and I'm just going to pause there, how many times have you seen videos of people getting shot by police where it's just this fucking ridiculous idea of machismo? Like, they're not going to follow the police orders. They're going to do things the way they want. The police say, put your hands on the dash or something like that. And they're like, oh, fucking put my hands on the dash. And then they reach in somewhere to grab something, and then the police officer shoots them, when even if they weren't reaching for a weapon, it's this fucking terrible thing that could have been resolved if people just follow police orders. And that doesn't mean that some police shoot people mistakenly or just for stupid reasons. Sometimes it does happen. Mistakes happen. So, and then I continue to say, when you're being arrested, never resist. I'm so glad. So the officers were right not to draw their firearms here. The punch by the officer to attempt to stop Alan from resisting. So I say, so Alan from stop resisting will be cited by many, the punch, as excessive use of force, but I think it was justified here if Alan was still resisting. So it does look like he was still resisting, because they're both like really fighting with the guy. So a punch subdues the guy enough so that they can get him in handcuffs. And then I say, I think it's better than choking, hitting with a nightstick, tasing, things like this. Some force, and some might argue with me that tasing is better. And I'm willing to go there. Like, I've seen various degrees of tasing, and I've seen various medical practitioners talking about the dangers of tasing, especially people like elderly people who might have pre-existing heart issues. So, and then a punch to the head, sure, you have a chance of really, really harming someone. But I think the way this officer hit him wasn't a full-on like KO hit. It was a pretty good hit, but I think it was enough to subdue him and to leave him bloody and stuff like that. But yeah, when we're looking at what are the best ways to go about this, we do need to take into consideration that some force may need to be used if police, even if police are rightfully arresting someone or wrongfully arresting someone, they need to use some force of some kind sometimes to apprehend the person they're trying to arrest. So I finish by saying some force needs to be used with citizens resisting arrest, and I think that happens. Okay, cool. Let's see what we got here from you guys. I already see a comment, all cops are bastards. Yikes. Hypnotoad says, how do I send you a message on Facebook? Oh, never mind. Got it. Okay, cool. We're just having a general conversation. I gave you guys the YouTube link of this of this police incident, but I want you guys to weigh in and let me know what you think. It's really dark in here today. Also, I'm not used to seeing myself with a fully shaved face, even though my shadow is growing in. I just want to know what you guys think about this. Sean Sullivan says, that's common sense. Why are we even questioning this? Well, this has just been released. This incident just happened, and I suspect people are going to make this a race issue. It hasn't started on my pages yet, but I assume people are going to say, oh, classic, another Native or First Nations guy getting beat up by the cops. Yeah, racism is alive, folks. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Like, yeah, I can see this happening. Aaron B., okay, here's a good question. Musique8V, thanks for the comment. And I hope you guys are all subscribed, by the way. Most of you guys will see this after. The last video, I think, is up to like 6,200 views, which is good for this channel. People are watching and engaging, so that's awesome. So Musique8V says, what about when people follow police orders and police act aggressive anyway? So even in those circumstances, and this is, I'm going to make this claim. Let's throw out some of the most horrible circumstances. Do you guys remember the movie Crash? There's a scene in Crash where a police officer decides he's going to frisk this woman in front of her man, and the police officer goes to essentially sexually abuse her with his hand in front of the man. And I think it was in front of the man. Or no. I don't think the man was there. He just did it to the woman. And I think the man finds out about it after or something. But anyways, what I'm saying is that if that scenario was there, say husband and wife, and they're getting frisked, and you can see that the officer is touching your wife inappropriately, you are no good to anyone if you are dead. You're no good to anyone if you're dead. If you see that happen and there's a piece of shit cop doing that, and this is happening, the time to fight this battle is not there when you have no chance. You have no chance. If you attack the police officer, they can shoot you. You have no chance. You may view that as a really hard pill to swallow from a machismo standpoint, as a male or even as a female or whatever. But in those extreme circumstances, I still think this is the most reasonable course of action, to obey police orders. It does seem and it does seem tragic that we are in that situation. But when you have when you give people the power over others, like police essentially do have when it comes to enforcing the law, you can have complete and utter grotesque psychopaths in those situations that if you fight back, they can just shoot both of you or shoot one of you and say, oh, they thought I was doing something and I really wasn't. And sure, they can say that in court after as well, but at least you have a chance, right, against this injustice. So if they're aggressive with you anyway, there are assholes in this world. Suck it up in the situation and have your day in court. There's no sense resisting. You're either going to get badly hurt or you could get killed. It's a terrible cultural indoctrination that's happened to this kind of fuck the police in general attitude towards police. And, oh, you can't do that to me. Let go, let go, let go. And then the cop, and then like, I've seen this one clip of this girl smacks the cop in the face because she thinks that she's allowed to do that because he's trying to arrest her. Smacks the cop in the face, and the cop just clocks her and handcuffs her. We need to get away from those, the way cultures view police in that way, so that people don't ever swing at cops or things like that. It's a bad bad way to go about it. And I know there's this thing going around of cancel police and cancel. This is all just noise. Canceling police, you can make arguments as to why some police officers ought to be put in jail, like we saw with George Floyd, and this guy is rightfully being charged, and so are the onlookers that stood by and did nothing. But these are anecdotes. These are anecdotes. These are exceptions to the general rule, and people are making the horrible miscalculation at applying this across the board and saying absurd things like racism is rampant. I mean, you need evidence? Look how many black men are incarcerated. That's not evidence of racism, people. It's just not. You have to demonstrate that they are in there because of the color of their skin. So there's lots of this shit happening. So we got Music AV says, what is our recourse then? The law. The law is what we have. That's what we have. And it's not perfect. The law isn't perfect, and it likely never will be, because there is a level of subjectivity when we rely on judges to make good judgment. And when it comes to sentencing and things like that, judges will make different decisions. They'll overrule juries' decisions, but most of the time, a jury of your peers are the ones who determine this. And I think body cams are a great advancement, so to show people, give people examples of how not to act. And then it also will give people a sense of security that things like I was just talking about won't happen. And most cops I know and that I talk to love body cams. They think they don't feel right going out without a body cam on. They think everyone should have one and it should be a thing. And Stephen S. says, all cops are bastards. What an absurd statement. Qualify that, Stephen. Stephen S. says, cops are not essential. They're lazy, freeloading bums, sucking on the taxpayers' teat. You don't see any practicality to policing and having cops. Kat Hudson says, something people seem to forget is that Civil Rights Act didn't happen until after Martin Luther King was assassinated by our government and the people rioted. Assassinated by our government. Let me Google this. Who assassinated Martin Luther King Jr.? James Earl Ray. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot while standing on the balcony of Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. An hour later, he was declared dead. For nearly 50 years, the federal government has maintained that James Earl Ray was the gunman who assassinated King that day. Do you have evidence to the contrary of that, Kat? Why do you think the government killed Martin Luther King Jr.? Do you have any evidence? And Martin Luther King's words were what woke people up. A lot of people, and it wasn't just him at that time, but he was a big voice for the civil rights movement, and it really woke up the world to a certain degree. And the rioting didn't necessarily have a lot to do with that. You'd have to demonstrate it, but you have to demonstrate. I mean, even at that time, there was a lot of peaceful protesting happening, making sure that justice was served. You have to demonstrate this. It seems like you have a conspiracy theory that the government killed Martin Luther King Jr. Stephen S. says, cops have always responded to peaceful protests with violence. It's the only thing they know. No, that's not true. Google any kind of protest that has women, Women's March, the Slut Walk, Like, think of like just Google some protests outside of the ones that you are seeing violence and rioting and things like this. And it is obviously different when the riot police are brought in, because riot police are trained in a way that they have to expect that, you know, people that are engaged in this crowd that's causing violence, and not saying that everyone's causing violence, but they are suspect of all of the people that are in front of their wall, and they're trained to be that way because there's not enough time for them to be able to assess who is what and what is going on. That's why they announce, please clear the area, this is now determined to be a riot in progress. You know, it's that's why these things are. Stephen S goes on to say, the US is worse than Hong Kong in terms of free speech. It's sad. In terms of free speech, the US has absolute free speech. What are you talking about? Khalid Muhammad said, I'm a man of color, and I've actually had many run-ins. I've actually had many run-ins with the cops over the years. You just keep your cool, answer their questions as succinctly as possible, and they're actually quite forgiving. Yeah. We got Killin McCrae in the room. Says, hello, Travis. Hello, Keelan, I think it is. Stephen S. says, at least the Hong Kong police and PRC police don't just randomly murder peaceful protesters. Who murders random? Who are you saying that the U.S. Police randomly murder peaceful protesters? You ought to be in the street selling pens if that's an actual claim you're making, unless you're trolling and just to be funny. You just made a claim. At least the Hong Kong police and PRC police don't just randomly murder peaceful protesters. That might be one of the most insane comments I've heard in the past 2 weeks, and I've seen some doozies. Stephen S. says, police force is never needed. Really? If a man is beating the shit out of his wife and he said he's going to go grab his gun, and she calls for police support, and the police are like, I'm sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check your... Like, you don't think police intervention's required in that situation? A woman who's fearing for her life? Dude, have you even thought outside of your tiny little circle that you're thinking? Like, it's like one part of your brain is heating up and all of the blood is rushing to that one part, and you're just like, Durr! But let the blood settle, let it trickle into the area, the logic part of your brain and everything, and just assess some of the claims that you're making here. Huge amounts of absurdity. Police force is never needed. You say, no, you're an idiot. That's a sign of someone who's not on very strong foundation. Hypnotoad says, I don't know about that, Steve. Stephen S. says, fucking racist bootlicker. That's something common that Antifa says. So I think we got Antifa in the room. Antifa is a terrorist organization. I think we got Antifa in the room. Hypnotoad added me on Facebook. I'm going to add you back. Add me on Facebook, dudes. You know you wanna. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Oh. There we go. Add. Cool. Okay, you're added. Cat Hudson says, Alan was not violently resisting till after he was tackled. People have to... Well, okay, you said violently resisting. That's doesn't really matter. You're resisting is resisting. If the police officer is trying to put your arm behind your back and you're resisting and you don't want to be handcuffed, that's resisting. And then he gets tackled, and then he starts resisting and fighting on the ground. People have a fight, flight, or freeze response when they encounter violence. So you're right about that, but and what I'm saying is culturally we need to adjust and educate and adjust the best we can to have people in those situations when a police officer is present and a police officer says you're under arrest, you put your arms behind your back and you do exactly what they say. No questions. Just do exactly what they say. Just, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. And yeah, Stephen S. fucking racist bootlicker. You're a hero, Stephen. Behind your keyboard. Joe Blow 2 says the Nuremberg trials should tell you everything you need to know about order following, with exclamation mark in all caps. Joe Blow 2 says, let me come to your house and order you around. You? Well, are you a police officer? And you can ask, like, if a police officer knocks on your door, because the police were called, like for domestic violence or whatever, and they show up, you can ask, may I ask what this is all about? It's like, oh, well, we got a call to your place. They heard screaming and shouting and police violence. And then the wife comes to the door and then she's like, no, we were just watching a horror movie really loud. So someone must have called the cops. If there's nothing going on, there's nothing to be worried about if police show up to your house, right? Kat Hudson says, except for the higher up Nazis who were working on their weapons, we brought them here to help on our space program. So what's that response to? Except for the higher up Nazis who were working on their weapons, we brought them here. Yeah, definitely. Even after the war, we used definitely what's the word I'm searching for? Well, we engaged with some technology that was developed by the Germans. Yeah, I don't know what you mean. Musique 8V says, I get that point, but what kind of abuse are we to tolerate because police are police? And my point is, in the moment, there's nothing you can do anyway. If a police officer is putting you under arrest and you feel like they're abusing you, if you resist, they're going to abuse you more, and they're going to cite, oh, look, they were resisting, I do abuse them more. So essentially, if you do have an asshole cop that you feel like is abusing you or using excessive force, you essentially have to take it. That's the most logical, reasonable. And I think these cases are very few and far between. I think people resist a lot. You can find many examples of it, of body cam footage of people resisting, and you're like, why did you run? Why did you resist? Why did you say, I don't have to fucking do what you say, you fucking pig, and then swing at them and stuff? It's like, people need to stop doing that. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to land you in jail. It's bad. That's bad culture. Keelan McRae says, Stephen S., are you serious? Our PRC police have disappear and assisted suicide strategies, and see the news. Hong Kong police killed the protesters and dumped their bodies in the water. CCP has you brainwashed. Daniel Braddock says, yeah, but I wouldn't just be silent about it. Yeah, you don't have to be silent about it. I'm just saying, initially, if you feel like you're dealing with like some kind of psychopath who happens to be a police officer, which I think is rare, but it has happened in human history. Like, it has happened. Yeah, you don't have to be silent about it. You have the right to speak still, unless for some reason, there's some law that they can cite to gag you. But I think that is very rare. Mystique AV says, the quote, feared for my life argument is super unconvincing. Yeah, in a lot of these cases, when a lot of these people who got arrested, they didn't realize that the body cams were on, the body cam footage was on, and then this person becomes this person in the media saying, this is what happened to me, and then the police released the footage from the body cam, and it just tells a completely different story. Is it possible that some people can fear for their life? Yes. And I think some people have irrational fear of police because of what's happened with how we speak culturally in some circles about police and what they stand for, or what they are and what they do. Keelan McRae says, Musique, that's a good point. Police ought to have training like medics are trained. Yeah, I think training, improving on training, all these things, that needs to be part of the process with any kind of service like what's being done by police. Joe Blow 2 says, this guy talking is talking about non-issues. Well, I mean, do I think? Okay, what did I call this? Stop resisting police. Yeah, I think police resistance is an issue. This isn't a non-issue. We see people shot and killed all the time by police around the world because they resist and reach for weapons and things like that. It's not good. Joe Blow 2 says the blue are order followers. They just haven't. Why are you talking in all caps, by the way? The blue are order followers. They just haven't led, I guess, they haven't been led down the path of gas showers and genocide yet. Man, you sound like you're suffering from delusion here. It sounds like you have a deluded fear of police. And then Joe Blow 2 says, you're an idiot. No such thing as a good blue. They are order followers. This guy talking us an idiot. Slow down. You're not spelling words now. Daniel Broadbook says, sorry, but I back the blue. Think the majority of cops are good people. Of course they are. People who are claiming that they aren't need to demonstrate their claim. And if you think, all you have to do is look at the statistics of policing. That demonstrates that most police incidents go off without a hitch. Almost all of them do. It's the ones that fall off the rails that it's the ones that fall off the rails are the ones that make it to the mainstream media. Joe Blow 2 says, and there are no good order followers. You strike me as Antifa. Wait, was that Antifa? Stephen S. But you are spouting a lot of the same things I hear from Antifa and the anarchists and people that just don't like police because they don't like that someone can enforce a law on them. There's a lot of people like that out there, and I tend to see those types of people hang out with those groups. Hypnotoad says all police should be investigated by outside sources. You mean like the incidents? Daniel Bradhawk says, thank God someone has the fucking balls to say that. I don't think it takes balls. I think it just takes a complete and utter submission to the truth. The truth, not everyone, as they like to say, my truth and your truth, and everyone has their own truth. No, the actual truth that's demonstrated by evidence. That's what I care about. Kat Hudson says, if we as citizens are charged with accessory to whatever crime, then the good cops can be judged the same when they stand by and watch police brutality. Sure. And we're seeing that with the George Floyd case here. Daniel Braddock says, Stephen S. dumb as fuck. Joe Blow 2 says, World War II Nuremberg trials, the Nazis' excuse, we were following orders. Yeah, are you equating that to policing? War crimes are different than policing. Joe Blow 2 says, no smart people here, just brainless sheep. Well, he turned the caps off at least. Jeremy Russell says that Pangburn, what kind of study would need in order to show that the discrepancy in black and white killings by police is due to racial motivations and not just some coincidence? Well, no one says it's coincidence. That's an interesting way that you just formed that question. So yeah, no one's saying coincidence. I'm saying it has everything to do with culture, nothing to do with race. because I've looked at the evidence people have presented for why they think that race is a determining factor here. And they say, this is what they say. They say things like, oh, look at, they'll be like, look at this case of this black man. And he was just in a convenience store minding his own business. And this store clerk calls the cops on him. And then he's arrested just because he's black. And then you go, okay, well, let's look at that story. And then you look at the story and you see that, okay, this black guy and this store clerk got into this argument, and the black guys started threatening the other guy, and then that's why the guy called the cops, and then the cops came there, and then this guy was belligerent with the cops, and the cops, he wasn't following the cops' orders to leave the store because he thought he had a right to be there. So then the cops put him under arrest and took him away. So, and people look at that situation and be like, racism is still alive. So you say, what kind of study would we need in order to show that the discrepancy in black and white killings by police is due to racial motivations? Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people have been trying to put those studies together for a long time about this discrepancy we see in the number of black males, let's say, incarcerated versus white males. And they've been trying to prove that racism is to blame for this. But not a shred of evidence has been demonstrated and presented to show that race is a driving force here. It's all cultural behavior that is driving this. So we need to have conversations about cultural behavior. And a lot of it is about, in the male side of things, is machismo. Look at different cultures around the world and what male machismo is like. Why does it feel manly in some cultures to stand up to police, to stand up with your chest out and be like, no, there's not a cop in this world that'll fucking take me down, like that, like kind of that attitude. So you have to demonstrate that race in cases. You actually have to go through cases. You can't just look at race-based statistics and say, oh, that race-based statistic is high for that race. That must be racism. It doesn't, that's not what race-based statistics ought to be used for. And if you do use it for that, it's just going to give you wrong answers. It's going to lead you down paths chasing ghosts that don't exist. It's just, so you need to demonstrate racism. Like if a cop says, if a cop's caught on his body cam or something whispering like, oh, I'm gonna catch this N-word because we need less of them in the world. Then you and even if he says that, if this guy has just stolen a vehicle, someone else's vehicle, and he happens to be black, and this guy says that, the crime itself is the driving force behind getting incarcerated. But this officer needs to be held accountable for the crap he said, and he ought to be looked at with suspicion when people are trying to determine whether he should be in law enforcement. So there's an example of even if I would have just left it at, okay, he said this, and then he went to go, he got caught saying this, and then he went to go and apprehend this guy who just stolen a car. A lot of people would say, yeah, racism. It was like, wait a second. The guy stole the car, and even though this guy was it sounds like he's a racist, or he's engaging in racism. Even if he was joking in that circumstance, it's like when you're a police officer in that position, that would be a fireable offense, of course. Hypnotoad says, can't send friend requests, only messages, bud. Yeah, you can send me a... Yeah, you guys can send me messages, and I'll send you a friend request. Oh, I don't know if it, for some of you, it might not allow. I think I have to turn on my settings to allow people to send me friend requests. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to look at this for a second. General. Privacy. Oh, who can send friend requests? Oh, I have it set to friends of friends. Okay, I'm going to set it to everyone. There. That, and now that should be... Okay, now everyone can send me a friend request. Cool. Kat Hudson says the CIA killed Martin Luther King Jr. I think you're talking about Martin Luther King Jr., not Martin Luther King. You have to demonstrate that. Demonstrate that it was the CIA. Jeremy Russell says the problem with making statements in the absolute is that they're always wrong. Back with the A name change. What? Val Diablo says at Pangburn, I thought the chick that cracked her skull from being pushed randomly by a cop died. Wait, what? What chick? Ball, can you share a? Well, I guess not a link, but can you give a bit more information? And you said I thought the chick that cracked her skull from being pushed randomly by a cop. Like, was this during the riot or something? That's terrible. Kat Hudson says, our police have murdered protesters in this country in the past, so have our National Guard. Look up Kent State. The incident was so famous, there was even a song made about it. Ohio. Yeah, so I'm sure police have murdered protesters in this country in the past. So it's like, yeah, that can be demonstrated. I'm not saying that police officers haven't made mistakes like that or just have committed murder. That will happen. But that doesn't justify being like, fuck police. Police are murderers. Police can't be trusted. That's just stupid. Statistically, these things you're talking about are just such a tiny percentage. It just almost doesn't exist, the percentage. Kate Hudson says, do you think Alan might have feared for his safety safety while in police custody? I think you meant to say. It's possible. I think you'd have to ask him, or he would have to do an interview. He didn't seem like someone who was feared to me. If I was to do like an assessment based on the general behavior that was going on, he seemed to be really aggravated, really trying to, like, he was kind of even saying to the first cop, like, we're gonna get this sorted right now, you and me, one-on-one, let's go, like saying things like that, right? So definitely the instigator in this situation of something that, and there was I don't know if the police found anything in the vehicle, but a bag kept getting moved from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle. I don't know why that was happening, but it happened. The person who was arrested did it, and then so did the wife. I think it was the wife that moved that bag. A bag kept getting juggled around, which was really weird. So I'll see if anything comes of that. I think I'll follow this story and see what happens. Make sure you hit the like button. We got 18 in the room. Jeremy Russell says we shouldn't have to tolerate it, but the idea is to respond with a lawsuit after the fact. Yes, of course. Jeremy Russell says at Pangburn, how would we even know how, quote, few and far between, quote, when they don't have to make reports each time they interact with someone? Well, because, well, they do make reports. All reports are documented and sent in. Like, for instance, if they arrest somebody, there's going to be a report written up about why that person was arrested. Or if someone reports a crime, they have to write a report about it and file it, right? So, so you say, how would we even know how few and far between? Well, we have statistics to show us, like, well, I get at what you're saying. You're saying that there could be possibly you're talking about possibility. And I don't really care about possibility. I talk about plausibility. What you're proposing is that it could be the case that there are millions of these interactions happening unlawfully and horrible things happening that we just don't know about because they're not reported. Anything's possible. That's why I don't engage in possibility. I engage in plausibility. So that would be some kind of conspiracy happening, that there would be a certain amount of cover-up happening, like police not reporting significant things that are happening, like abuse or interactions with members of the public. Or you would, I would suspect you would see a huge outcry by people in the public, posting their evidence, and then once these things hit the public of police brutality and things like this, people grab it and they just go to town with it. So anytime any instance of this happens, we tend to hear about it. But is it possible there's a conspiracy of this happening? Of course, but I care about what's plausible. Musique 8V says, I don't think that psychopathy is rare in the police force. Really? Psychopathy is extremely rare in human beings. So it would be incredibly rare in a single group, like in a police force. So what are you basing that on? Colin says, resisting police isn't heroic in case people really think that it is. Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of people think it is. I think a lot of people think it is. Like, we must resist the police because the police are racist. Like, there's this idea going around right now like that. And then Kat Hudson says, I don't think it's rare either. I think it's quite prevalent. What, like police brutality? Is that what you're getting at? Bal Diablo says, police have irrational fear of citizens. Resisting police, or sorry, police have irrational fear of citizens. Again, I mean, qualify that claim. Just to generalize a whole group, stop doing it. Stop doing it. If you're going to say it, say, here's a more rational thing to say. I think some police may have an irrational fear of citizens because, and tell us the reason why you think that. Don't just claim vomit. Kat Hudson. This is fallacious. You said, I have not had any trust for the police since watching them beat the shit out of Rodney King on TV. Do you spend much time like watching cases where police do good work? Like not the sensationalized like horrors that sometimes have taken place in policing, but the actual good work that police do in the community. Have you taken much time watching that? I think you should engage with some content like that. Hypnotoad says at Pangburn, yes, indeed. The incidents that occur within police departments should be investigated by people entirely unbiased in regards to the police department. I agree. Hypnotoad, I agree. Yeah, because you could have a potential bias in there. Remove the bias. Remove the idea of bias. Remove as much subjectiveness as you can. Hypnotoad says, again, at Pangburn, I think the problem that most people have is that cops are held to a lower standard than regular citizens than most people, or they appear to be, and I tend to agree. Let's read that again. I think the problem is that most people, you mean most people who have problems with cops? I think that would be more accurate to what you're saying here. Most people that have problems with cops, I think, are held to a lower standard. So they believe that they're held to a lower standard of the law, you mean? Like they get away with stuff? Yeah, again, if someone does believe that, they have to demonstrate it. It has to be demonstrated. And you're going to, and every time you try to generalize a whole group of people, you're going to find yourself trying to apply that argument to the next police officer, and you're like, oh, they're not like what I thought they were. It's the same thing with racism. It's like, stop. We need to stop doing that. Labeling police this, labeling police that, labeling a race this, labeling a race that. It's people are addicted to it. Musique says, I'm black. What if it was the other way around and I said cracker? Well, it seems that you would not, there wouldn't, the social justice community wouldn't be down your throat the same way that people would be down the white cop's throat if he said the N-word. And I think that's just the state of the very, very loud social justice community. Like they think that would be like, yeah, give some of that racism back to those racist or to those racist whites or something like that. We see things like this all the time in social media, where people still claim that black people can't be racist. That's still like, I mean, that meme still seems to exist in many people. Well, you guys should be able to add me now. I've opened that up if you wish to add me. Initials are... Someone just said, oh, okay. Jeremy Russell, here we go, says, all right, here's a hot take. At Pangburn, I consider myself an anarchist. I think anyone who has any sort of authority should have to justify that authority. That said, I do think depending on the police precinct, they do justify their authority when they serve and protect as they should. Sure. I think that's what everyone wants, right? They're there to serve and protect the community. And like the domestic violence situation I gave you, which is a huge, huge part of what police officers do on the regular. Like we need police enforcement. Jeremy Russell says, what do you think of that? Just trying for some conversation here. So let's go through what you said again. I consider myself an anarchist. And again, I would have to know more what you mean by that. There's a lot of probably unwanted baggage that exists with that. But I think anyone who has any sort of authority, so any sort of authority, like parents over children, have like a very high amount of authority, should have to justify that authority. So the justification within the parent situation would be, well, I'm in charge of your well-being and I'm held accountable by the law to keep you well. So you have to listen to what I say. So that's just an example for you. So I agree that the justifications need to be in place if there's going to be an authority over you. So the law, we're all born into different societies with different laws. We essentially are born into laws that we didn't necessarily accept, but we're born into a culture that has accepted those laws to be the governing factors that determine how we're going to keep people safe and allow people to maximize their well-being, essentially. So I think what you're saying is, and then you say, that said, I do think depending on the police precinct, they do justify their authority when they serve and protect as they should. Sure. I mean, besides the anarchist thing, it's like, and then you say, I think anyone who has any sort of authority should have to justify that authority. Yeah, so it's like, I mean, parents we subconsciously justify that parents ought to have authority over their children for the reason I just said. And of course, that authority must not be abused, right? We can't have parents abusing children and having sex with children and things like that. Obviously, that's a thing here. Oh, Hypnotoad says, I'm not trying to generalize. I'm referring to those who do. That's what I thought you were doing. Cool. Jeremy Russell says, I do think there are some systemic issues regarding race and class, but I want to find a real underlying issue to solve the problem, not just yell everyone is a racist. So you say, I do think there are some systemic issues regarding race and class. I'd be interested to know what those are. I have read the deep, deep, deep literature into this, searching for evidence of systemic racism in the West. And I have not found a peep, not one peep of evidence to demonstrate systemic racism. But systemic cultural privilege, of course. Culture is built in a way in hierarchies, right? Jordan Peterson talks about cultural hierarchies all the time, and that is where these conversations ought to be having, or we ought to be having, and like why are certain, like what's leading, let's say, a huge amount of black males into prisons in the United States. Fatherless homes too. A lot of black philosophers are talking about this when talking about certain black communities, and it's not all black race. That's where people get so fucked up in their mind about this. They hear someone talking about black statistics and talking about the cultural issues within some black communities, because some black communities are rich. it's like some black communities have all of the cultural privileges and more. But there seems to be something in black males, for instance, in black males in certain collections of culture, that machismo drives them to become sometimes more robust in how they demonstrate themselves to police, and it doesn't just exist in those black cultures. I see it in white cultures in British Columbia, certain pockets of white cultures. So, and that's why race has not a fucking thing to do with it. It's we can relate these cultural areas to other cultural areas around the world, and they're all different colors of skin, all different races, but we still see the same problem with machismo. And this like relates to, and it's a problem in Hispanic culture as well. We see this problem with machismo, and it's like we see, and when we interview some of these people who have killed other men and they're serving time for it in prison, and they talk about, well, why did you have to kill that guy who said that you were a sucker, or that you were a pansy? Why'd you have to kill him? So they're like, in my culture, you just don't understand that if someone says that about you and you don't react and stand up for your manhood, then you will be looked at as the weakest link, and you will be trampled over if you don't do that. And then the person interviewing is like, yeah, but did you have to kill him? And then they just say, yeah. And that, like, in their mind, obviously it's so irrational, but in their mind, it's like something that they felt like they had to do. Hypnotoad says that, Pangburn, do you often engage in conversation on Facebook, or would that be too overwhelming? No, well, often no, but in the past about 2 weeks, I've engaged on the race topic on my personal Facebook page, which you guys will see if you head over there, and it's astounding. Read through the comment sections. Read the way people are thinking about these issues. It really is astounding. You got Pard says this dude thinks he is a modern day Friedrich Nietzsche. I've heard a few people say that on social media recently. I wonder why. I wonder why they're saying that, and why they think I am that. I don't get it. Hypnotoad says, "Oh yeah, you should keep considering whether or not to make a Discord server. You don't necessarily have to be involved, but I think it'd be a good place to talk about certain subjects." Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm thinking of bringing on someone to help. By the way, if any of you guys are interested in helping or being involved in what I do and what we do at Pangburn, send me an email, info@pang-burn.com, and we can talk about how you can help. Video editing skills. Maybe you're interested in doing some street epistemology reporting for Pangburn. I have some people working on that right now, where you just go out into your community and have interesting conversations with people, and then you send in the video content, and I will pay you for your work. So if you're interested in doing something like that, hit me up. You can send me a message on Facebook too, or through Twitter. At Twitter, I'm at the Pangburn. You'll find me at the Pangburn everywhere. A lot of people, Hypnotoad says, I'd help, but I'm not sure I'd be good at it. Laugh my ass off. You know what's interesting? Seeing the people who aren't good, who don't think they're good at street epistemology, engaging in street epistemology. Those tend to be the people I watch when I'm watching street epistemology. So if you're interested in trying out some videos and doing some interviews and conversations, all you need is your cell phone. That would be good enough quality for the channel. And and if you're going to university or something like that, that's always a good breeding ground for some interesting content. So Jeremy Russell says, earlier you had said you can't find any evidence of systemic racism, yet people discuss research that covers exactly that topic. Do you have specific research that you have debunked? Well, it's not up to me to debunk research, right? If a research paper comes out and says, look at how much harder it is for a black person to obtain health care in the United States, for instance, and they'll list the true statistics. And then the conclusion is wrong, because the conclusion will be it's because they black. And then I will say, well, where did you get that from? This is the true statistic to it's because they're black. It's like, where have you been able to demonstrate that something is in the system that says, oh, let's make sure those black people don't have easy access to healthcare. Yeah, it's like, show me the actual evidence of that. So yeah, it's not up to me to go around debunking. It's about, okay, if someone sends me an article and says, hey, look, this demonstrates systemic police racism or systemic racism, then I look at it and I'm like, that doesn't demonstrate anything. It demonstrates, okay, this is the stat of, this is a race-based stat. And then the conclusion is an argument from ignorance fallacy. I can't figure out why else it would be. So racism. It's fallacy after fallacy after fallacy. There's so many of these studies that have been highly commissioned and highly touted by people who are actually very smart. There is a bug existing in their brain that commits the argument from ignorance, just like religious communities do with the Bible, or their choice of holy book, and say, well, I believe in the Bible because it's self-evident, it's true. Well, how do you know it? Like what part? Like, what do you think is true, and why do you think that? Yeah, Hypnotoad says, quote, the universe exists, so God. Yeah, the universe exists. That's all the evidence you need. Or I've had people say, have you ever looked up at the moon, at the birds, at the bees? How can you not see God? I'm like, I just saw the moon, birds, and bees. Jeremy Russell says, I would think that any peer-reviewed paper needs to be debunked versus just saying it's wrong. Peer-reviewed is a dangerous term. When we're talking in when we're talking about social issues, like studies that are done to demonstrate a social issue to be true, look at who reviewed it and look at if they were a skeptic. Look at what level of skepticism. And you don't have to be a professional skeptic or anything to debunk something or to read something and say, oh, wait a sec, I see your conclusion, I see the stats, and let's just assume the stats are true. How did you get from these stats to racism? Where in the middle did you find like the racists? Where are they? Look at the trees. Look at this Charles Darwin head. Look at him. I'm gonna start using this Charles Darwin head whenever I need to talk to someone. Maybe I should actually start having people involved in these conversations. But look at this Charles Darwin head. This is God. God created this and all of the creatures on this pale blue dot. Demonstrate it. Please hit the like button. Even if you agreed with me or disagreed with me, I hope you hit the like button and subscribe because you enjoy engaging in intellectual discourse. I'm going to start doing more call-in shows, guys. And that'll be fun. I hope to get you guys calling in, and then we can engage on the air more. Kind of like the shows like the Atheist Experience does, and I kind of want to do like rapid fire call-ins so I can get lots of people in asking their question, doing some quick rapid fire exchanges with me, and then on to the next one. I think I like that style. I like thinking on the fly like that. I don't like these long, drawn-out, wordy, philosophical. Oh, I needed my my pipe for that, but it just wasn't where I thought it was. I'll just use this pen. Philosophical discussions and verbiage that only I understand. So, yeah, I'm more interested in getting to what the fuck we mean when we say things. So, thank you guys so much. Thank you for engaging. Hit the like button before you leave. And as always, let art and science inspire. Enjoy your weekend.